Hello, it's Gary reaching out from Elevate Practice Intelligence, and we're excited to bring you the last webinar for 2024. And it's perfect timing to introduce the strategy and the financial planning component of it, but not from the dense rigor corporate B2B lens that we often misunderstand what consultancies provide for practices where revenue is less than $10 million. When we think about it from Elevate's lens, this is the street strategy. This is the fast, nimble, agile, practical. It's got a scale and a cadence that fits a 1, 2, 3, 4 clinic network, and not rooted in the bureaucracy of a multi-million or $1 billion enterprise. This is fast. It's approachable, and we're excited to deliver it with you today. This is the time where we are planning for 2025. This is where we're taking the learnings from 2024 and what do I think my practice can achieve, and how do I stretch my team and myself to deliver a plan that I've never used before, and it's just the perfect timing for the thinking for next year. We fully align with 98% of practice owners with revenues less than $10 million have never operationalized a strategic or financial plan. This is the bias of practice owners as a clinician, as a technician, more than they are a CEO or a C-suite mentality. And it is hard to get into the mindset of how do I even start a strategy or a corporate plan without spending tens of thousands of dollars to have an expensive consultancy firm come in and put me through a 12-step plan on the strategic planning and financial budgeting for a fiscal year. The need for practice owners to stop, pause, and rethink how they're going to attack 2025 has to be different. It has to be from a lens of CEO, and it has to be at the forefront of your mind, especially as you start to use the last 6 weeks of this year, so that you're starting Q1 on the offensive and you're running your business full tilt from January 2nd onwards. When we think strategy, we think Simon Sinek. I think anytime I hear why is a practice-driven strategy and what it feels like. There's also another author that I've added to my library over the last 3 months, and his name is Alex Smith. He wrote a bestseller called The No Bullshit Strategy. He's got a weekly newsletter called The Hidden Path. Very much rooted in the Simon Sinek start with why, but so much more into the practicality of what is strategy, delivery, and branding. And when we go through just the 5 lines on the screen, how do you provide captivating value to your clients, which the communities you serve want, which they can't get where you compete, which your services deliver seamlessly, which your practice communicates authentically. So when we go through the hierarchy of this is strategy, followed by delivery, followed by branding. This is all in the concept of value creation. When we talk about value creation, we have to have it in an equation that really denotes how do we create shared value in your practice to win, to have a competitive advantage over your competitors. And right now, from what we've seen in the multitude of practice owners that we've worked with in 2024, is that we have this skewing of value creation, which is for your clients and your team members, and it's distorted or out of whack for what the value extraction for the owner is. And where we see this is in the ability to extract a profit out of your business. So 90% of the expenses that any clinic has goes to create value for your clients and your team members, which only leaves 10% in the extraction of a profit, or less than 10%. In some cases, it's a loss, or it's just a wash for the year. So our job through this seminar, this webinar, is to be able to teach you how to start to tilt the skewing of value creation into what the benefit is for the owner. You take all the risk, everything is on your shoulders. You should be able to take 22% of your revenue and have that in your bank account as profit at the end of every year. So that is the purpose of shared value, just to have that as a headlight to think about the equation. We're going to reference it over and over again through the webinar, that creating shared value where the practice owner wins on 22% EBITDA is crucially important to a competitive advantage for your practice. So where we are with street strategy here, this is the simplicity of it's nimble, it's fast, it's 3 questions on your right brain, followed by four questions on your left brain. And if you can stay with us for the remainder of this webinar and then dedicate 4-6, I don't think it's going to take you more time than that, over the next couple weeks to really start to drill into what could 2025 look like for us. So at Elevate, we believe purely in the number one competitive advantage any practice can have is leadership and understanding yourself as a leader. We talk about the person-to-person approach that we take first and foremost with all practice owners that we consult with. It is understanding of self. How do you have to adopt and be aware of a new viewpoint that is not clinician or technician based, but it is CEO or C-suite based. We always believe that leadership isn't about being in charge, it's about taking care of those in your charge. When we think about the next rung up and we go to people, our hierarchy believes that a client cannot love a brand until its team members love it first. And we know that 20 to 30% of your team members create 80% of your value. So we believe in how are you in your growth and development, personal and professional, growing those 2 or 3 people, if you have a staff of 10, that are going to continue on that trajectory with you, whether it's to open a second site or a third site, or just to grow into the space that you've taken on. People is the second one. Then we align practice management over top of that, which is just a fulsome look at the blanket or the tapestry that we weave throughout the clinic to create that amazing client experience. And at the top of the pyramid, obviously, is your business performance, but that's usually an output of the first 4 levels and really just is a lag measure to the lead measures that we work on through the first 4 levels of the hierarchy. When we think about the 3 questions, they're usually straightforward questions. The approach that we've taken through the 3 right brain questions is all about being a contrarian. You can do it in a way that is thinking where is an expected value in my practice and taking it from the mindset. There's 2 or 3 different ways that you could look at it. You could look at it from Harley Davidson's perspective, which is a Harley Davidson doesn't have a competitor of a BMW bike or a Suzuki bike. The competitor to a Harley Davidson is the person that's approaching retirement and I'm going to build a sunroom on my house, or am I going to buy a bike, he or she to buy a Harley Davidson. So it's looking at finding where the competitive nature of your business lies. It's not directly in path to your practice in the middle lane that you compete in. The other one is the unexpected value, and how are you creating value that you don't see right now. And a lot of what will come from that type of thinking is if you understand healthcare consumerism and you understand amenities and lounges and what clients are expecting for and the demographic that you're serving in your practice, you can use that approach to it. What we've done for our 3 right brain questions is delivered it from a source of being a contrarian. How do I disagree with the market? How do I flip the script? That is the thinking that we're going to use through these 3 questions. The first question is, most people assume X, but we think Y. And when we give the Elevate example, we often use, do practice owners have it wrong about practice management consultancy firms? Our industry thinks consultancy firms are MBA, PhD, big business and brokerage, and they take that B2B, business to business viewpoint for everything that they interact through with their customer. At Elevate, we think consultancy firms should serve owners to be all they imagine they could be. And that's our starting point for the P2P or the person to person. We think that way. We believe that way. We believe that it is the first brick that has to be put into your wall of building the sustainability and the predictability of your practice for the next 10, 15, 20 years. Our second question is all focused on what a customer might buy or do instead of buying from us. So what ways are you the only X that delivers Y? And here, these are the things that we believe. We believe only is better than best. Don't compete. Sacrifice, sacrifice, sacrifice. Outwork your competitors every chance that you get. Get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and start working on your strategy where you've got 3 hours before your kids get up and have to get ready for school, before you have to get into the pool for your morning swim, whatever the case might be. But just sacrifice something so that you're always on the offensive. Be familiar but different. The only is such a good word. Only is better than best or better. These are the things that you're trying to resonate in your strategy that might be 3 sentences long. And build on a secret. What do you have in your practice that nobody else knows about because you can't communicate it effectively out to the marketplace? And the third question that we've got is without us. This is the value is the thing your practice makes, not the services that you provide. So when I think of value and I think of how do you create it within your business, this is, again, to use the word, it is a tapestry or fabric that weaves every aspect of your clinic together that is really hard to describe. We put a few examples in for you. We won't read all 4 of these. If I start with the last one, without Elevate, practice owners are left without a trusted advisor to help navigate stagnation, burnout, survival, and financial pressures. Without Elevate, your inaction might force your clients to seek care elsewhere in 2025. So it's important to pull those 3 questions together and think about, how do I roll that up into a succinct strategy? This is what Elevate's put together. So Elevate, this is one of our taglines. We're built from the treatment room, not the boardroom. So what that screams is that we've been in the shoes of practice owners. We've been in treatment rooms. We've generated caseloads. We've learned how to get friends and family referral, and we're not born from the boardroom of a PhD or an MBA, where the applicability and the practicality to a practice that has $1.2 million is not always there, and often it's rarely there. So this is what we put together for Elevate using the 3 questions. We're the only practice management consultancy to sacrifice dense corporate rigor, which enables us to communicate the key levers of practice management in a bold, impactful way so that we can offer owners a fast and accessible method to create a sustainable practice growth. Pretty straightforward. But that took us 6-8 hours of just mind-bending things to be able to say it succinctly. And the time spent on this is so important because it drives what comes when we start thinking about the left brain things, questions that will be coming up. So we think street strategy summary, just take it and do it. We believe it and we say it over and over again. Inaction is a practice owner's greatest competitor. The greatest competitor that you have in your business for success isn't the competitor down the street, it's you. And if we don't tackle that person-to-person component first, I know you've heard us say that 10 times over, 20 times over. This is where we start to get the I'm going to disrupt, I'm going to leverage, I'm going to persuade, I'm going to provoke, I'm going to look after myself first, I'm going to be a great storyteller. I've got the charisma and the action and the desire and the optimism to move forward with this. And I want to leave a legacy. This is the power of the thinking, whether you do it with yourself and a partner, or you incorporate team members into this, many different ways to get at it. But what it does scream is action. And I'm going on the offensive in 2025. And this is what my practice needs to be successful, to be predictable, to be one of those practices that just lasts into perpetuity. So here's where the right brain of the ghetto box and the street strategy meets the left brain, which is how do we apply the learnings from our most valuable strategy and weave those into your financial plan? And how do we assign resource deployment and the core things that make your practice the only practice to behave and think this way? So let's get started on the left brain. Just see if we can move that along. Left brain exercise. Before we get into the questions, we have to start thinking differently about our practice. We have been taught over many decades to think that revenue minus expenses equals your profit. And anytime a practice owner does that, you're going to end up in that skewed shared value formula where the value created, the value that you create for your team members and your clients outweighs the value that you extract for yourself in profit as the owner that's taking all the risk. We want you to flip the script on this one. Instead of going revenue minus expenses equals profit, start with revenue minus profit equals your expenses. And what we want you to take away from this slide is to figure out what number do I put into profit so that I know I've got X dollars to spend on expenses. So here we go. For 2025, we've got a clinic that's going to go 1.25 million in sales. We're going to take 250,000 out as profit. That's a 20% margin, which leaves us for $1 million in expenses. We're going to take that 250,000 and use it throughout each of the next slides in order to be able to think about what are the three things that we're taking from our most valuable strategy and taking it through to the 250K slide at the end of this slide deck. The way that we've looked at it, we've all become masters of, whether it's, I've always, in my physio background, had the SOAP acronym, subjective, objective, analysis, and plan. What we use for our financial planning is something very simple as well: scope, opportunities, assumptions, and plan. And let's just jump right into it. But it's nice to know that the speed and the accuracy and the compliance that you have to charting on your patients that has taken years for you to learn can be learned by using a similar acronym for your financial brain. We're just trying to say that it's just a normal way to behave as a practice owner from a C-suite, from a CEO lens. That's SOAP on that lens is learned, and it can be as effective as you are as a practitioner from SOAP on your client files that you report on after every treatment, which I'm sure you all do. Okay, so scope. So this is your first question. What two things from your MVS do you want to pull into your financial plan? When we think about your MVS, we think about what are the two things that are making you distinctive, the only where I don't compete, where I've got this, it's me or nobody else within 10 kilometers that do what I do or do what we do. And what we've used an example here is how do we maintain and enhance the world-class client experience that we've got in our practice? We've got a 5-star Google review on an N of, let's say it's 500. And also, how do we increase access to care? So one of the biggest things for any practice to solve, whether you're public or private healthcare, is how do I create greater access to care for the communities where I have a privilege to serve? And again, we have to flip these or pair these two things from your strategy into the formula, and if I do these two things really well, I'm going to find a way to get $250,000 into my bank account versus the 70,000 that I had the year prior. So let's jump into the opportunities. This is a busy slide. Don't get lost. Just stay with me on this one. Across the top, we've got the MVS, but if you remember what our hierarchy said a few slides ago, we have leadership, people, culture, practice management, and then we stuck in the 250K, which is the business performance. We don't have a line for client experience, which is our fourth tier, but we stuck it as the number one opportunity that we've got under the MVS. So we're not going to go into the greater access to care or the revenue or the last column. We're going to go straight into client experience. When we think of client experience, we think about, well, how does a leadership or a leader of a practice or a multiple network practice, how do we talk about the emotional intelligence growth? How do we become more authentic as a leader? How do we win on relationships? How do we win on communication? So there's a whole growth segment that goes on client experience, which might be different than how we are approaching leadership from another point of view, which might be revenue, something that's more binary, or something that requires more empathic thinking. We've got on the client experience those four components. When we think about how do we get and communicate our team members to become in alignment with what we believe in, this is when we think about the impact and the purpose of our jobs, and how do you create that and communicate that as an owner. How do you get shared values? How do you align to, and how do you get your team members to align to the values that you have as an owner and what you want for your practice? And how do you continue to win on human skill development? In the past, it was called soft skills, but how do you win on becoming a better human? So that we're developing that part of your skill set as a technician when we're thinking, when we're talking about your people and the culture that you're working towards. The practice management part of that, and these are now your KPIs. So I want to create a greater client experience. Well, how does client experience get measured in a practice? One we know is Google reviews. How do I get, if my cadence was to have 100 new Google reviews every year, how do we get 200? What resources and energy and time and dollars do I have to put in to double the number of Google reviews that my practice gets, especially if your 5-star review on a 500 N score of your reviews? These are free things that help you rank on your SEO. So go ahead and wildly win here. Other metrics that we can use for client experience, that we can use as KPIs, the number of friends and family referrals as a percentage of your caseload. So if you have a 200 new patients every year, at least 70% of those patients should be friends and family referrals. Same with cross referrals. How well does your team work together to improve the likelihood of success, a successful outcome from your care plan? And how often do your cross referrals happen as an N on any given month? So a cross referral on a practice that has $1.2 million in revenues, we would expect at least 40 cross referrals between practitioners. So you know your strengths of your practitioners, and how do you create a world-class client experience that your client's going to get better every time in that type of scenario. The other part of it that we can measure as a KPI is your no-show cancellation rate, and best practice benchmarks are anything less than 12%. What you have to figure out in the last column is, if I do this really well, what likelihood of that 250,000 can I bank on by winning on your client experience? And then when you consult with Elevate, we'll take you through the next 3 boxes, whatever it means, the importance to you for the next 3 boxes. These are the things that we put together. We only want 4 or 5 things that we're going to work on in any given year that's going to help you win on your profit of 250,000, which is just another way of saying we're going to balance out shared value so that I can extract profit in the amount that I think is important for the risks that I'm taking for the practice, but I can also deliver the same sort of value creation for my patients and my team members. So we've gone from opportunities to assumptions, and it's like, what assumptions am I going to make based on the opportunities that I have a line of sight to for a point in time in 2024 that I'm going to create this plan for 2025? When we think about the assumptions, we always want to try to quantitate or have a quantitative measurement. If we can't do that, then we're looking to provide a qualitative measure to it. So when we think about any sort of assumption, the assumption is the leadership and the development of self. So it's that first rung on the hierarchy again. The size of the opportunity that we have is it's a high size of the opportunity. It could be 2 or 3 times your profit over the course of 1 or 2 years, and that is the TBD side of it. So what is going to be determined if we prioritize the size of opportunity as number one for the development of self? The ease of execution of it. This is tough. This is tough because, and I've got it as a hard, the owner in action, it is unfamiliar. I just want to be a technician. I just want a caseload. The goal that you should have as a practice owner is, how do I slowly and incrementally work my way out of the practice so that I have a practice over the course of the next 3 to 5 years, if that's your timing, where I am managing from the sidelines and it takes me 8 hours a month to manage a practice that delivers 22% margin on $1.5 million of revenue. So it's the ease of execution of this is hard, but once you have it, it is the most powerful thing that you can do for your success of your practice. Then we put a success rate. What is the likelihood of this happening? And for just simplicity, we just wrote 70% through all 3 columns. And this is the to be determined as we start working together. The rank is always going to be number 1 on the leadership, always 2 on the people, and anything that's practice management KPIs is going to be the 3rd. Woven into every one of these is the client experience. So even though it's got our 4th level ranking, I'm going to say over and over again for the people that are screaming at me through the screen saying it's got to be your client experience. You're darn right it does. But it is woven as the thing or the tapestry or the fabric that you wrap around your practice to deliver that. And it's hard to quantify as a standalone assumption. So here's a little bit about what we do at Elevate for any time that we've got a new practice owner coming through with us. We think about the boxes, and just to whip through it really quick, we do the P2P stuff really well. This is what we're born from. We're born from being great coaches, great leaders, feedback coaching, all the things that really do lean into this box of having a 360-degree leadership scan completed. It's 5 domains. It's on a framework of trimetrics. We call it the DISC profile, but it talks about the behaviors and the motivators and the acumen and the practical application that you apply to the role that you're in. Then we pair it with a 360-degree business scan. And these are the 6 domains that we talk about in our private practice. And we talk about the business model and the operational model and the financial model and the organizational model and the market strategy and the healthcare consumerism that go into making up the full lens that we can do a scan of your business. And then we do a debrief. And through that debrief, then we set a roadmap together where the leadership development is your top 4 priorities. And then we take you through a B2B and top 4 priorities that you have on the practice development and the practice growth side. That's the fun part, is creating the roadmap together. This is nimble. This is agile. This is not the dense rigor corporate B2B that you'll see in banking or the strategic national strategics that are in place in Canada, etc. So Elevate's how. There is so many things that we can offer a practice owner once you come into the learning environment that we have. We've got consulting services and subscriptions. We've got ebooks and e-courses and blogs and videos. We've got the webinars. We did one about 4 weeks ago, and that was the 4 hows to reduce labor spend on your practitioners. We're going to have this again reproduced 4 or 5 times across 2025. So just a really important part to e-learning, the things that come with the subscription, the consulting services, very powerful in the package that we've prepared for practice owners. When we think about the last part of Elevate, we talk a little bit about what is practice intelligence. And I'm not going to read through this full slide, but the practice intelligence part is finding the solutions in the environment that you work in, and how do we apply deep industry domain knowledge and the successes that have created the people that we have surrounding Elevate. That is our practice intelligence. Our why is always going to be our why. If you just strip it all away and read the last part of it, we make it downright easy to extract more profit from your healthcare practice, and in turn we give practice owners a greater sense of agency over their wealth creation. We know that 95% of practice owners have the value of their practice as part of their retirement plan. And that might be a really odd thing to say for somebody that's 35 years old and 2 years into your practice. But as you start to work towards 50, 55, you go, yeah, I need that value to be the most it can be so that I can exit and have a chapter in my life that I didn't think I was going to have 15 years ago before I started consulting with Elevate. And that brings us to the end of the webinar, done in 30 minutes. We will have it posted, a link up on our website or through one of our weekly newsletters if you've missed this webinar. But it's great having you as an audience today. Love what we're doing with Elevate. 2025 is going to be incrementally better with the resources and the access to services that we've got. We think we're going to have additional things come through that are going to be really impactful for practice owners across Canada. More surprises to come in 2025. Hopefully, we'll be releasing that news before the holiday break on December 22nd, thereabouts. And yeah, thank you for joining. Have a wonderful rest of your day.